recording, and I'll wait one more minute. 1:04 is generally when we start. So. All right, so for November's webinar, I'm going to cover a topic that I covered a little bit about a month or 2 months ago, but it's something I think that's important as we're going into MFT season, as we're going into 2025. We all know that the company results have changed, gone down a little bit, so we have to react to that, and our teams are reacting to that. And as part of that, we have to be very aware of the culture that we have in our teams, around our teams, between teams, and in the organization as a whole. And so I've pulled some best practices. One of them is from Bamboo HR, and another is from OC Tanner. And they do studies around HR, best practices, comparing companies, what other companies are seeing. And so this is kind of a collection of their thoughts and my thoughts. So I'll start with just a quote. And Ram Charan, the culture of any organization is simply the collective behavior of its leaders. If you want to change the culture, change the collective behaviors of your leaders. And I think this is really important because this is something that we have to take into consideration. We're all leaders. We're all what our teams see. We are what our peers see, and we're even what our managers see. And we have an opportunity to be that change, to have the culture that we want, not the culture that we're going to get if we're not careful and we're not consistent. And consistency is really important here. So in part of the studies, what they found is there were specific leadership styles, social norms, and work design that drives what's a toxic culture. And first, when you think about it, leadership consistently emerged as the best predictor of a toxic culture. And this might just be one team, one leader. This can be across teams in a specific part of the business and a specific métier. But leadership is consistently going to emerge as the best predictor of a toxic culture or a healthy culture. Social norms define what behavior is expected and what's acceptable in a day-to-day social interactions. And so to be transparent, if there's gossip allowed in a team, that's going to become the social norm. If people are disrespectful of time and other people's time, that's going to become the social norm. And social norms can exist within a specific team or unit, and it shapes the subculture. Really, really important, because if we're not aware as leaders, as peers, as colleagues of what those social norms are around us, then we're part of the problem instead of being aware of them and disrupting them or changing them or recognizing them and rewarding them. Leaders at every level in the organization can reduce toxic behaviors by just discussing social norms with their teams. And this could be, how do we communicate? How do we collaborate? What are the best practices for our team to get together as a team? Do we need to be in person so many times a month? Do we need to be virtual so many times a month? What are the expectations set within a team and how other teams are behaving around it and what you see? And then more than a century of research has pinpointed a handful of other elements, such as work design, overall workload, conflicting job demands that consistently will predict important outcomes, including toxic behavior. Are teams talking to each other? Are they collaborating? Does one team have a workload that appears to be heavier than another team's workload? Are they resentful of that? When rethinking about work design, process changes, it's really important to focus on the elements of the job that are going to influence employee stress. Maybe reduce those nuisance work things that they do, clarify job descriptions. We're going into people review. This is a great opportunity for us to make sure that people are aware of what their role and responsibility is, there's clarity around how they're supposed to perform their tasks. And this isn't down to the nitty-gritty. This is high level. But if people aren't aware of what they're responsible for, if they're not aware of their role, if there's any kind of ambiguity about how they're supposed to collaborate, then they'll pick up bad behaviors. And those bad behaviors can become social norms. So 3 really big topics that will drive a toxic or a healthy culture: leadership, the social norms that we allow within our teams, and our work design. Any questions? All right. To transform a company, you just have to make its culture evolve. It's not a one and done. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes time, and it's a delicate exercise because it has to be very intentional and it has to be consistent. And it really means changing habits, changing those bad behaviors. And that means recognizing them and changing them and understanding sometimes they're unconscious and sometimes they're deeply anchored in the team. If you have teams that have behaved a certain way for a certain period of time and they've been allowed to be this way, it's going to be hard to change those behaviors. First, you have to recognize it. You have to make sure that they're aware of it. And then you have to do something intentionally to change it. Company culture. Culture is consistent, observable patterns of behavior. But when you think about not just the company culture, the team culture, it can make or break a company. If you have 2 teams that need to work together and one is all in, collaborating, getting along with everybody, and the other team isn't so much and they're not working together, then that healthy team can really, be impacted by that toxic team. A healthy team can culture and foster collaboration. They're motivated employees. But if you had a bad or toxic team, it's going to lead to high turnover and other problems. It can lead to beelines. It can lead to, people not being able to collaborate because they don't get along together. It can lead to really, really toxic things that are going to impact how those teams are going to work together. So team culture starts how the company culture is going to respond. So different elements that define company culture. It could be work assignments. Are people feeling like they understand their work assignments? Do they feel like they have a good level of work work to do? Not overworked, not too much work, but enough to get accomplished, enough to stay challenged, but not overworked. What are their collaboration preferences? Do we understand? Do people know how to work together? Do they actually collaborate instinctually, or do they have to be forced or actually asked to collaborate? Social norms, those social behaviors, how people get along, that could be the time that they come in during the day. It could be where they work. It could be where they sit. Is there advancement opportunities? And dress code. To be honest, it defines a company's culture. You can tell when there's a relaxed, casual dress code. There's generally maybe a relaxed, maybe sometimes too casual people that are working there. And work ethic. Do people come to work on time? Do they leave on time? Are they playing with those timetables? Are they taking advantage of maybe not thinking that people aren't looking? And so when you have a good company culture, people are clear about their work responsibilities. They want to collaborate together. Social norms or norms that will help the team to be productive. People feel like there's room for advancement. They feel like you're giving them the opportunity to grow. And dress code, whatever's the norm, whatever fits in, whatever's the right thing to have, but it's understood and everybody follows it. If it's casual, everybody's casual. If it's business casual, then everybody's business casual. And that work ethic, that's everybody's doing the best that they can do to get their job done all the time, not just some of the people, some of the time. So some elements of company culture that we're going to talk about: how company culture supports business goals, how to find and use the data to make progress. What does great company culture look like? What does it feel like for the employee? Who is responsible for company culture? What's important to the employee? And this is based on the studies from O.C. Tanner and Bamboo HR. And the top 10 characteristics of a strong culture. And then we're going to talk about 4 steps to fix what's broken. This doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen in a day. It happens over a period of time. But there are consistent steps that you can take to help fix the culture. And you don't have to be the leader of the team. You can be a colleague, you can be a peer, but it takes all of us to fix those things that are broken in the company culture. So how does culture impact business goals? Employee engagement. If our employees are engaged, generally the thought is that they want to be here, that they want to work hard, that they believe in where the company's going. Turnover and associated recruiting and training costs. When there's high turnover, generally it means something's wrong. It's either bad management, bad peers, bad work. So when we have that high turnover, we have to take a look and say, why? What's going on? And when people want to come to work for Michelin, when they want to be recruited, when they're excited about coming here, those things, and we have low turnover, those are the things that mean that we have a good culture and people believe in the company. Higher or lower productivity, employee morale. Generally we think, well, if our MFT scores are low, it must be because we're not doing well or we haven't met our objectives. That's not necessarily the case. That's not, because employee morale, you can have a team that's working really hard and maybe it's just not a good market. Maybe it's a bad time. Maybe things have changed. Maybe we aren't as competitive as we used to be. That's not the employee's fault. The employee morale will still feel high. They'll still feel good about working here if the culture is the right place to be. But if the culture is toxic and we're not meeting our goals, it's kind of high for employee morale to be high. Creativity and innovation. So if the culture is healthy, people are okay with being creative. They're excited about innovative ideas. They're excited about taking risks and trying new things. Customer experience and satisfaction. Another thing with the NPS, culture impacts our business goals, because if we have people, salespeople or customer service people or people that are talking to the customers that maybe don't have that great impact on the company and are working in a bad culture, they might be, saying things to the customer that we don't want them to. They might not be giving the best service to the customer that we want them to. Overall customer experience might be negative, but it might be our fault that it's negative, not the product's fault. Revenue and profits, obviously, if it is a down year, it's hard for people to feel up about it, but you can still have a healthy culture and interest from top talent. People want to work here. People want to advance. People want to be a part of a winning team. They want to be a part of a healthy culture. So how can you find out where your company culture is? You ask. So I'm going to go back to Menti and I'm going to ask you all a couple of questions. So let me stop sharing. All right. So a couple of questions. You can poll your team, you can ask your team, but if you really want to know how your team or how your colleagues or how people feel about work, ask them. And it doesn't have to be in person unless you have that great relationship. So Menti is open. How do you feel about work? My workload is manageable. It is clear what I'm supposed to work on. We're focusing on the right things. I have everything I need to do my job. I know which direction we're heading, and I enjoy coming to work. So these are just a couple of the questions that you can ask just to see if people are feeling good about the work they're doing. Is the work design off? Do we need to change something about the way we work or the ways that we are working, the way that we are collaborating? Do we need to help people see vision about where we're going, how their job fits into the big picture? All of these questions help to answer that culture question about what is that culture in the team. So I see about 49 on, so I'll wait. I'm going to try and wait to see if we get at least 40 responses. Generally, these are pretty positive. People are going to feel, their workload is manageable. It's about a 5. People are generally clear about what they're supposed to be working on. There's some ambiguity down here. We're focusing on the right things. It seems pretty strong. I have everything I need to do my job. That's a loaded question because we all know that systems don't talk to each other and we have some challenges there. I know which direction we're heading in, and I enjoy coming to work. So I'll wait for a couple more responses to come in. So when you think about how these questions might impact you or how you're answering the question, it probably is a little bit related to the culture and where you're working. Do you have more work than you can manage? Maybe if you're one of the people that answered down here at 2, maybe it's also we're overworked. We can't get our job done. We're all working on too many things and we don't have enough time to get all the stuff done that needs to get done. Julian, yeah, you're right. The results are kind of interesting. It is clear what I'm working on. I mean, in the middle, I mean, that's okay, but for 31 people and, 5 to be neutral and 1 to be below neutral and 1, I mean, that's kind of alarming. Is it clear what I'm supposed to work on? So again, these are great questions to ask your team or the people around you just to kind of measure what's the culture. All right, I'll go to the next one. Where are you on the stress curve? I think this is a great question because you might be clear about what you're doing and you might feel like your workload is manageable, but maybe your stress level is really high. And if you have a whole team, and I'll take this back a step because stress is okay at work. We're supposed to be stressed at work. If you're not challenged, you're not stressed. And I hope that you're all being challenged, maybe to your limit, maybe a little bit past your limit, because that's how you're going to learn. And so stress is good. Too much stress is not good. Too much stress leads to burnout. And so the alarming results here, there's 3 people so far that are on burnout, and that's alarming. That probably is leading to some cultural dynamics, maybe social norms, maybe leadership behaviors within where you're working. That could be very impactful to the overall culture of the team and how the team is reacting. I want to be the person who answered 1. So Derek, you made a comment here. If you want to speak to it, if you want to speak up, if you want to read that.
No, I just to your point earlier, obviously, one of the biggest things, and sometimes you run into it over time in managing teams and Michelin, obviously, our teams change, structures change, and you're trying to elevate and upskill um, individuals and also sometimes teams and the existing culture that you run into may not be where the benchmark is or to the expectations of what we see as minimum standards. So in times, not necessarily in what I see in current times, but there has been a history from time to time where teams are kind of passed along, or if we're winning, we're not paying attention to the details of what we're supposed to do. So if it's accepted in winning, it looks larger in losing. So what I'm saying is basically don't be afraid to make the changes. Sometimes you can see negative impacts in MFT, and obviously we manage towards MFT, but not towards execution sometimes. And I just want to put that in there as a watch out that sometimes it's worth taking the some people look at it as a hit. I look at it as an investment in the team to say, hey, look, we got to take a time out. We got to take a pause. We're not doing good right now. And it's almost like a sports game. Everybody knows when we're behind or when we're losing. It takes you to kind of say, hey, look, we're taking the time out. We're down. We've got to do something different. Not everybody's going to be along for the change. It creates work for everybody involved. But if you consistently talk and let everybody know this is why, this is where we need to be. Look around. This is where everybody else is. Look at the scoreboard and look at where we are. And if you get there, it makes things better. But in the process, because you will sometimes get that negative outputs, just make sure that you're talking to those in your stakeholder circle professionally to let them know, look, I'm doing some things right now that's going to be a little pressure for the team, a little hard, some things that they're not used to. So just put it on the radar, and it makes things easier for you when those situations do come around where it makes it uncomfortable for those on your team.
I appreciate that. You said something that is one of the most important things, and that's if you're going to change and you're going to ask the team to pivot and you're going to ask them to do something different, maybe for a better outcome, maybe for better execution, explain the why, right? Tell them why. If you don't tell them the why, then they've got no reason to follow. They've got no reason to believe. They've got no reason to want to change. But if you explain the why, and the why is provocative enough for them to want to be a part of it and exciting enough for them to help to make it happen, then they'll buy in. But if you don't start with the why, then there's nothing for them to hold on to. There's no reason for them to see why we're doing this. And then no matter how you paint the vision of where we're going, they won't get there. They can't see it because they don't understand the why we're doing what we're doing to go where we go. So why is so important so that they can understand the where we're going, which is the vision. So thank you. All right, next question. What makes you proud to work for your company? Whether it's an affiliate or Michelin or one of our different what makes you proud to work for us? And I think it's important because sometimes people need to take a step back and say, yeah, maybe things aren't good right now, or maybe things are really hard right now, and maybe my stress level is really hard, but I'm working for this company for a reason. And I think it's important to always remind ourselves. I don't know how many of you have worked for different companies, but I have. I worked for Heinz, and I worked for General Electric, and then I worked for Sabic, who GE Plastics sold us to a chemical company. All really big companies, much like Michelin, but the culture wasn't the same. And it was extremely toxic and cutthroat. And I'm here for a reason. I'm here because I like Michelin's values. I believe in the Michelin values. And I believe even if the culture's not where we want it to be, that it can get there. And so these are great responses. Quality product. We don't cut corners because that's our customer, our future objectives, the ambitions, projects, internal values, external reputation, people, values, brand, values, innovation strategy, DEI, our resilience, care for people, your team. I love that. Go down to the core of I'm proud of my team, career development, values and people, industry leaders. Our values haven't changed, and we're focused on the big picture, the long run. We do a great job of balancing those values and our vision with the need for continued financial performance. We have shareholders, and our values are people, respect for people, respect for shareholders, respect for environment, customers. I mean, it's important to remember shareholders is part of respect for. So if we're not making money, then how can shareholders believe in us and invest in us in the future? And so I think it's always important to take a step back and say, why are you proud? Not focus on the problems, but focus on the why we're here. We're all here for a reason. And then on a scale of 1 to 10, a little personal, how would you rate your well-being at work? Your personal well-being. It's not very good, or it's great. I know all of us are really challenged right now. It is a hard time right now. There's pockets of our business that are just not where we want them to be, and it's a hard time right now. And I've been really, really fortunate my entire career at Michelin to have worked on great teams and with great people, whether it was in the supply chain, whether it was in progress, whether it was in L&D or my current team. I can be having a bad day, and I know that I've got somebody who I can go talk to who's going to make me feel better and be like, it's going to be okay. We're going to get through this together. And so that personal well-being and knowing that my managers have always cared about me as a person is important. And so I think this is a really important one. And this alarms me because I would want everybody to be great here or here. And so if you're neutral and you're below that where that bell curve should be, there's something that you need. You need to speak to somebody. You need to focus on what's important. Um, I think it's important that we remember that if work gets to be a little too much, go home, be with your family. Family comes first. They should always come first. Michelin cares about people and they care about your family. And if you're not taking that time to invest in you and your personal well-being, you will never be a great employee because you've got too much on your plate. If you're not taking care of yourself first, you can't take care of your team, you can't take care of your peers, and you can't take care of your job. You come first. And so think about that as you think about what your well-being is work. So the reason that I wanted to post these 4 questions is because I think it's important for us to think about how, I'm going to stop sharing and share again, how that impacts our overall culture. Get to where we were. So, once you kind of understand where your culture is, and to be honest, that's part of finding and using your data. You have to look at that, gather feedback, use Menti in a team meeting. Ask the folks, how are you feeling? How are you feeling about your workload? How are you feeling about your stress? Have one-on-ones, have really, really honest and collect that data, gather feedback, collect insights, use surveys, use teams, whatever you need to do. But then also observe. Be cognizant of what's going on in your teams. Be cognizant of behaviors. Be cognizant of the fact that social norms might be changing, or maybe they're the social norms that you don't want. Examine the alignment of culture initiatives with company values. Is the culture of the team aligned with respect for people? Is it aligned with the values of the company? Are we truly in this team living the values and the respect for people, or is there an opportunity for us to talk about what's not, where we're not, and where we need to go? And follow financial support. Investigate the funding of culture initiatives to assess priorities. And I know it's hard when we're not financially doing well to have a team building, but how about everybody meet in the cafeteria and have lunch together, sit at the same table? Or just, hey, let's go sit outside. Let's go for a walk. You see a colleague, who maybe you haven't always collaborated well with, hey, let's go for a walk around the building. Follow the funding of culture initiatives, but also be the support. So a couple different ways: gather feedback, observe, be observant of the behavior, analyze different initiatives. What can you do? Are we aligned with the company culture? And if we're not, what do we need to do different? And follow some financial support. What does great look like? So on these 2 studies and across benchmarking, a really great culture at a company, they're preparing for the future, which means that in teams, around teams, different initiatives are happening to adapt to the changing workforce needs. It means that we're adapting to what our future looks like. We're adapting to what's changing in the market. We're not only just reacting, we're adapting and we're changing, knowing that the workforce needs are changing. We're reorganizing and rewarding, giving feedback and appreciation regularly. If you haven't used your We Care points by the end of the year, shame on you. Give them out. There's people around you that are doing things every single day. Make sure you're rewarding them and recognizing them. Give feedback, give good feedback to people. Make sure that you're being honest and include everyone, ensuring all employees feel valued and respected, not just the ones who you favor, not just the people that you get along with, but make sure that you're including everybody, that we're creating this inclusive environment where everybody is a part of moving forward as a business and changing. Engaging employees, offering learning opportunities and career paths, because even if we're in a tight spot as a company, I'll tell you what, learning never stops. Continuous learning, training classes, we are not going to stop. We are going to keep moving forward. It is important for lifelong learning to be a mindset that we all adopt and that we all believe in. And welcome new hires. If we have new hires coming on your team, help them feel like they're part of the team. Help them feel like they're part of the solution. Take them out to lunch or, go have coffee with them and encourage diversity. And this isn't just diversity that you can see, but encourage diversity of people who think differently, diverse talent to bring new perspectives. One of my unconscious biases that I uncovered during the unconscious bias training was was people that were younger than me, millennials, and instead of just ignoring it and saying, well, that's how I am and that's who I am, I try to reach out to them often and make sure that I'm understanding how they're thinking. They don't think the same way. They were raised differently. People were raised with phones in their hands, not phones that you dial with, but phones that you carry around with you. And so it's a much different culture. It's a much different mindset. Instead of, discouraging it, encourage diversity and learn more. So a great company culture will have all of those elements within it, and a great team culture. So who is responsible for company culture? Everybody. It's for the executives, it's for managers to set the values, which we have. And not only do we have our respect, but we have our I care traits and behaviors to set those values and lead by example. And the employees need to support it and reinforce it. And to be honest, sometimes that's giving feedback on I'm not seeing what you're saying. And it's really important for us to all make sure that we're encouraging and we're part of the change and we're part of being responsible for company culture. Don't just let it happen around you. Be a part of that change. Be a part of encouraging it to be a positive change. And there are different aspects. There's not one part of company culture that's important to everybody, but different employees like different things. There are different parts of company culture that are important to employees. For some of us, it's the company values. I really like working for a company where I feel like we speak our values and we live our values. Regular communication. And this is what's most important to employees as a whole. Company benefits, having company benefits. Are you taking care of me from the benefits perspectives? Rewards and recognitions. Do you tell me when I'm doing good and do you reward me when I'm doing good? Are you develop me as a professional? Are you helping me get better? Are you teaching me? Are you training me? Are you helping me learn? Are you part of my lifelong learning journey? If we're a diverse culture, interactions with executives, getting to have those opportunities to network with the executives, and employee in-office perks. They just set up, this really nice coffee bar down here, and I haven't even gone to it yet. At Michelin Connected Fleet, we have a really nice office atmosphere, which makes it nice to go into the office. For me, it's just seeing other people in the office. To me, that's the in-office perk. But when you think about it, these are the values, the 8 values that are most important to all employees, to most employees across all different kinds of companies. And so every one of us can have an impact in helping these become the strong company cultures that we see within our teams. 10 characteristics of a strong culture. So we kind of know what great looks like, but when there is a strong culture, people are aligned. People are working on the same goals. Maybe there's a team. We know what our objectives are and we're working towards our objectives. People are responsible and accountable. They don't just do their job, but they do their job well because they're responsible for what they're doing and they take accountability for what they're doing. There's performance focused, right? We're rewarded when we do well. We're supportive. We support each other. We help each other. We teach each other. We train each other. We coach each other. Maybe we're just there for each other. We collaborate well in a strong culture. We prioritize our work environment. We encourage wellness. We're agile. We can move fast. We don't have to go up 10 chains of command to get a decision made. We're innovative. We're thinking differently. We're coming up with great ideas. And we're communicative. We talk to each other. So there's always one element or 2 elements. If you look at your team right now, if you look at the people that you work with, something's probably not where you want it to be. There's probably an opportunity for you to encourage 1 or 2 of these elements to help build a stronger culture. Catherine. Catherine, do you have a question?
No, I don't. Sorry. It's
Okay. All right. A strong company culture helps recruit talent, drive strong results. And if you don't know Gary Vaynerchuk, great, is amazing entrepreneur. He is just doing amazing things. And he speaks strong about company culture. He's a big presence on LinkedIn. If you're on LinkedIn, I think he's also on the other platforms. But when he speaks, he's like one of those people that I listen to because he's always got like a nugget of information. But I love this. A strong company culture helps recruit talent. We want the best people. We want them, we want to bring them into our company, but we want to keep them too. And we're going to get results. So how do you fix what's broken? You're going to find different elements in what we just uncovered, which are really like, gosh, we got to do something different. And there's different ways that we can do it. There's organizational design. How are we structuring our systems? Are our process aligned with our cultural goals? Do we have good processes? Do we need to look at roles and responsibilities? Do we need to look at tasks? Are people doing the right things, and do they know what they're supposed to be doing? Organizational conversations. Do we have open dialogue around cultural changes? Do we have that push from everybody to help get things better? Because remember, it's not just the executives and the managers, but the people have to be part of reinforcing and supporting the change. Do we have the right leaders who embody and support to target healthy culture and clearly defining vision and goals? Do people know what they're responsible for? Organizational design. I know what I'm supposed to do. My role is clear, but do they understand where we're going and the goals for cultural change? And so aspirational articulation, purpose. We talked about this before. Purpose is your true north, your big why you do what you do. Experiencing joy, happiness, and satisfaction often. Better physical health and well-being, low risk of death, strong personal relationships, increased optimism, resiliency, and hope, feeling a greater sense of belonging, increased career satisfaction. So when there's an aspiration, if there's a lack of this, then we have to figure out how to help people identify their own purpose, maybe their own values, and tie that to the values of the company to understand what they're doing in their roles and responsibility and how that ties to where Michelin is going. And I think that's such an interesting exercise. What are your values and how your values align with Michelin's values? And what are you doing for your roles and responsibilities, your job, your task? And how is that aligned to where Michelin is going in the future? That exercise can help every one of us and everybody really get that aspiration articulation where I am aligned with Michelin, and you feel that cultural connection. Step 2, leader selection. I mean, this is something that we are always working on. Effective leadership. Do we have, demanding leaders with high performance accountability? Do we have motivated leaders who understand triggers? They're inspiring action. Service oriented. Are they supporting, coaching, enhancing effectiveness? Are they organizing tasks? Are they directing efforts? Do they have empathy, emotional intelligence? Do they listen? Do they actively listen? Not just listen to hear words, but listen to understand. Are they helping us follow the vision, setting goals, strategic planning, and creativity, innovative ideas, creative solutions? And part of being part of that cultural change, if you're a leader in this company, part of a leader selection is effective leadership that's around all of these things. That helps culture. When people are accountable, when we're aspiring, when we're supporting, and there's good management of the team. They're empathetic. They create the vision and they create innovative ideas and solutions. Step 3, conversations. We often think, well, we communicate in our team, but are you having those real good conversations, those tough conversations? Are you creating a safe space where people can give constructive feedback? Do people give feedback openly in a team to each other? Do they listen to each other? So some really good aspects of a positive workspace is having great organizational conversations in the team, open communication, active listening, safe space where people understand that it's a safe space to not say necessarily all the things that are on your mind, because some things are not work related and don't belong at work, but to say those things that are going to encourage change, that are going to encourage, we need to do things different. They're going to encourage talking about what's working and what's not working, what's wrong, giving constructive feedback. I love constructive feedback because if it's truly constructive and coming from a place of good intent, it means I can do something with it. It means I have the opportunity to learn something, do something different, and move on. Training resources. Do people know how to get better at coaching, at management? And truly, are we having conversations about better collaboration? Do teams feel comfortable working amongst each other? Do they know how to work amongst each other? Do they know where they're doing it well? Do they know where they're not doing it well? And finally, organizational design. There are strategic steps to improve your company culture. If you take a step back and you think about it from the big picture, do you know where you're going? First step, do you know what the vision is? Do you know what the vision is for your team? Where is your team going to be in a year? Where are they going to be in 6 months? Where are they going to be in 3 months? Do you know your direction? Even if you're a colleague and a peer and you're not a manager, do you know your direction? And find suitable people who are going to help you get better all the time. Find people who believe in the culture, who encourage it, who are going to be those supporters and those visionaries for, we want to have a great company culture or team culture. Help new employees fit in. Help them feel like they're part of the team. Lead by example. Set the right example. Integrate values daily. It's not a one and done. It's an everyday opportunity for us to not only live your individual values, but live the company values. Reward and recognize. Again, We Care is there for a reason. If you have not used your We Care points up by the end of the year, shame on you. They're there. And if somebody does something that, deserves more points and you don't have any more, put it out there and let your manager approve it. Keep up with the changes, whether it's the market, the product, or whatever it might be, the technology, AI, digital. Keep up with the changes. We are changing so fast. You have the opportunity and probably the responsibility to keep up with the changes and foster feedback. Be that constructive and rewarding feedback. Make sure that there's a feedback culture. Make sure people feel comfortable asking you for feedback. That's so important. So a lot of different things in here, what great looks like, the different elements of great, but a couple of very intentional steps for how to get to good company culture. And I'm going to pivot one more time. There's a couple of trends, culture trends for 2025. This is from OC Tanner, just for us to kind of keep our eyes around and to think about. So coming in 2025, a renewed focus on care in the workplace. 84% are less likely to burn out when they feel like you care about them. 30% are less likely to leave the organization. 12 times more likely to feel high engagement, and 7 times more likely to do great work. So when there's a renewed focus on care in the workplace, it really impacts people in a really positive way, not only for their personal well-being, but for the company's well-being and productivity. Culture trend number 2, rethinking total rewards. What does total rewards look like and what's important to people? Culture trend number 3, destigmatizing mental health issues at work. I think Michelin has done an amazing job in the last 2-3 years of really letting people know about our EAP, about the resources available to everybody, not just people who have an ongoing condition, but those people who maybe have a one-time, I need some help. I'm struggling right now. We have an amazing EAP system that's there for people. Expanding onboarding behind new hires. We've been challenged a little bit with how do we make sure that we're doing the right things for teams? How do we make sure that we're bringing people on? And do they have a training plan? Do they have a mentor? Do they understand their role? Do they understand how they fit into the big picture? I think it's really important just not to just hire them, but make sure that they feel like they're an ongoing part of the company. Not just after 3 months, after 6 months, after 9 months, after 1 year. And I know Monica's online, but I think I think I read somewhere that the the critical time point is between 1 year and a year and a half. And if they don't feel like they're part of a company, then they're going to be ready to move on. And I could be wrong, but I think it's not just 3 months, not just 6 months, though people will generally give you up to a year. But if they don't feel like they're part of the company, then they're going to look elsewhere. And smarter culture insights with AI, making sure that we are using AI for all of the right reasons. So the last pivot is a little bit about what is a leader. And so this is really where we're going to take this conversation in December. And I've been putting some best practices and some things that I've learned probably over the last 3 years that I've been doing these webinars about what a leader is. You know, a leader motivates others to act towards achieving a common goal. A good leader inspires people to do something bigger than themselves. A leader is different than an organizer. An organizer pulls people together, but a leader leads them. It's important to understand that leadership isn't about having a particular position, title, or personal attribute. It is not about title. It has nothing to do with being an executive. It has nothing to do with having a team. A leader is having influence and impact. If you're not an effective leader now, you can grow. You can learn how to be an effective leader. It's not hard. 7 characteristics of a really good leader. Vision. Does your team know where you're going? Do they know what's important and where we're going to be going? Where are we heading? Motivation. A leader that's highly skilled in motivating people, getting their energy up, knowing what makes them tick, and being able to tap into those emotional triggers. Service. You know, people will follow a leader who is not just serving themselves, but they're serving their followers, serving their teams, making their teams as effective as possible, not just thinking about what's in it for me, but what's in it for everybody. A leader has to be empathetic, able to place themselves in the shoes of others, whether it's their peers, their colleagues, their manager leading up, or their team. Creativity. Honestly, you can't be a leader today if you don't have some level of creativity. Demanding. You've got to want the best. You've got to push people to be their best, not settling for mediocrity, not settling for, half-hearted efforts, but truly pushing people and demanding them to be more. And management. You've got to be able to manage people who follow you. So 7 characteristics of a good leader. And what we're going to cover in my last session in December: the self-motivated leader, the confident leader, the accountable leader, the passionate leader, the courageous leader, the leader with integrity, the emotionally intelligent leader, the humble leader, the visionary leader, the disciplined leader, and the communicating leader. And at every time in your leadership, you will need to be 1 or 2 of these or 3 of these. It's nearly impossible to be all of these at one time. That's aspirational, but it's understanding what each one of these leaders brings to the table, brings to their team, brings to their colleagues and their peers, and leads up to the manager. But every one of these is important at a different time in the story, in your story, and in your career. So in December, we're going to talk about these different chapters of leadership and how to lean into being this leader and why it's important at a certain time. Any questions? You guys have been great. Any comments? All right. I just gave you 8 minutes back in your day. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jen.
Thanks, Jen.
Thank you, Jen.
Thanks, Jen.